Today I baked a sourdough carrot cake, and it's one of my family's favorite recipes, and I got the recipe from one of the King Arthur flour baking books, and one of them has a section on sourdough baking, and this recipe actually has sourdough in it. And if you're familiar with sourdough, you have to feed it and let it rest, and so sometimes when you feed it you actually have to discard part of the sourdough, and this recipe actually uses the discarded sourdough so that you don't have to throw it away, and so it's less active than it would be for bread dough. Here it is. So I'm going to take half of it and then I'll just feed it again. Usually I would throw the discard away, but instead we're putting it in the mix. You can just see how alive it is. It's pretty cool. Now it does take a little bit of effort to mix it into the sugars and fats. So I use a fork. I'll start with a wooden fork and then I'll go to a metal fork. You could also use probably like a stand electric mixer. You just want to make sure not to overbeat any of these things because it is going to be a cake. Alright, so it's starting to combine. Whoops. I'm gonna add the eggs now. That'll help with the kind of like emulsion of the oils and fats and the other liquids. So it's like the eggs act kind of like a binder. So as you can see, as I break them up, it'll start to get a lot more smooth, and the sourdough you want to get all the lumps out of the sourdough. All right, it's looking much better now. All right, we're still working on the wet ingredients. We have crushed pineapple, yum. Got a whole 8-ounce can. We'll just stick it right in there. I love these pop tops that you don't have to use a can opener with. Okay, now we've got our grated carrots. I a lot of times just grate carrots by hand, but if you have a whole batch to do, it's nice to have a food processor for that. All right, our bowl is getting pretty full. We got some walnuts. All right, let's start mixing this together. And again, just kind of gently folding it. And last but not least, some vanilla extract. I think it was 2 teaspoons of vanilla. So this is more just inspiration for you to get out there and bake something yummy. This cake is perfect for fall. It's got fruit, nuts, spices, the whole works. I even put in some whole wheat flour for extra measure, and you can't even tell when you eat it. It tastes amazing. Okay, so we got a little, even though we have the sourdough, which is kind of a leavener, we still have some, a teaspoon of soda, and only a half teaspoon of salt. I'm using a sea salt. And we've got some ground cinnamon, and the recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. So like I said, this book is from King Arthur flour, and I don't think the recipe's online. It's from one of their baking books. And it's really special because of a sourdough in it. So you could look for the King Arthur flour. It's kind of a soft cover. It's one of their earlier books. It's not a hardcover book. It's more like their Bible, I think. I forget if it says Bible on it. One of them says Bible. I have several of their books. Anyway, whoops. There we go. I wanted to show you the dry ingredients. I'm just trying to blend them all together. And then I transferred them to a bigger bowl since they were both quite full. All right, and now we're going to add the wet ingredients. And it helps to have like a rubber spatula at this point. All right, so again, you just want to gently fold. You don't want to just be too strong-handed at beating this. Just gently combine the wet and the dry. This part's very satisfying. Okay, so since it's a layer cake and I'm taking it out of the pan, we're going to put some parchment on the bottom of each pan so that the cakes come out clean. And so I'm just going to trace around. I actually did this circle twice. It's been a long time since I've baked cakes, but I do it just for birthdays basically. But I probably didn't need to trace it twice because I ended up just stacking the paper and holding them and cutting them together. So as long as you hold them tightly together, then you probably only need to trace one circle. Okay, now I'm just going to take some softened butter. My hands are clean. I've been washing them every time I get food on them. So they're very clean. But I'm going to use them to, it's just so many things with this project that are good with your hands. So we're going to just cover, some people when they bake cakes actually don't butter the sides because that helps the cake stay flat and it does stick to the side, but that helps it not get that domed like muffin top. So I don't really care as much about that. There's so many fruits and nuts, this isn't going to rise that much anyway. Just a little dusting of flour, and then we're gonna try to divide as evenly as possible the batter between the two round pans. Yum yum. This is one of those cakes that you actually don't even feel guilty eating because there's so many good things. I mean, besides the frosting that we're going to put on it, which is another topic in and of itself, I mean, the cake itself, it could just be like a hearty breakfast, really. A hearty breakfast cake. If you didn't frost it, I feel like for certain it would be. It's almost like a healthy muffin. So, and especially the sourdough just helps with digestion and the whole wheat flour. So, yeah, and there was coconut. I don't know if I mentioned that. Also shredded coconut. Okay, we are going to work on the cake. One thing I want to mention is when you bake cakes, it's good to make sure they are all the way cool before you frost them, or your frosting is going to melt. And we don't want that to happen. Okay, so we have butter, cream cheese, powdered sugar. The recipe called for vanilla after that. And this is actually good to do with a mixer if you have one. I ended up having to use my clean hand to kind of break up the butter at first and then add the spoon. And it says just like a tablespoon of milk, not a lot. You have to be very, very sparing with the milk. You can really overdo it quickly. It's probably even best to use a tablespoon instead of just pouring direct like I did. So we got pecans in this cream cheese frosting and those diced ginger pieces. The recipe says to put them in optionally, but my son doesn't really want them in the frosting, so I put some on top, and they actually kind of make a nice decoration. So here I just kind of loosened the sides with my butter knife, and now see how easily this came out? So it's cool. It's completely cool. That's another reason it came out so neatly. And so we'll go ahead and frost it. Again, make sure the cake's completely smooth or cool. And it's starting to slide around the plate. I was having to hold it in place, and also because this icing is pretty thick. But that's probably why when I buy cakes at the bakery, a lot of times they'll frost the plate that the cake's on. I think that's just to hold it in place while they're decorating it. Okay, now this one I'm doing a little different. I'm gonna pop it out. Now it's upside down, but I'm gonna turn it back right side up so that the flat side's in the middle and the domed sides on top. Now if you had a more fragile cake or a hotter cake, this might fall apart trying to do that. But this cake is almost like fruit cake. I mean, you could probably use it. It's not so heavy that it would be a doorstop, but it's certainly, like I said, it's a pretty hardy cake. So it was easy to just flip like that. All right. And I'm not gonna frost the sides. I'm just gonna leave it kind of au naturel, like a Boston cream pie or a giant whoopie pie. All right, now for some decorations, I'm just gonna put some more of the pecans, just a little bit of the ingredients that were on the inside, on the outside. And there isn't any dried ginger in this, but the recipe did call for ginger in the frosting, and I'm just sprinkling some on top. All right, for our final touch, we've got some nasturtium flowers that survived our first hard frost. So we're going to bring them in the house and enjoy them. I hope you enjoyed this video and it inspires you to go bake something soon. Thanks for watching.